Hello, everyone. Anthony Timothy again, leading the way podcast, season 2. So here we are with Freddimir García, our DEI officer at the Hudson Gateway Association of Realtors. And Freddie, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us this morning and with me in person.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Freddie, you bring a brand new concept that has been talked about for a very long time in the past ages. It's an oxymoron as to a new concept to something that has happened in the past, okay? So as I look at what's happening in the realtor world, in the associations, and in the work of our industry as a whole, there is a big discussion going on about DEI. But before we get into that, how did you get into this whole DEI field space?
Yeah. So again, thanks for having me. Happy to be here. Excited to have this conversation with you. It's funny. I think a lot of the folks who do this work on a regular basis will probably have similar stories one way or another. And I think, it kind of speaks to the passion of this work. So for me, I was asked to oversee a committee when I worked in higher education. That's how I started. I had no background besides being a person of color, besides being, from New York City, going into a predominantly white institution. And so my experience is what I drilled off or kind of took from my experiences to kind of lead this committee. And so I was asked, hey, Freddie, do you want to oversee this committee? I said yes, and that started my trajectory into the work. And from there, over time, it was all about not only learning, taking classes, attending conferences, having conversations with some of the leaders of our community around this topic, and over time just got, a little bit better, a little bit more knowledgeable, asked the right questions, and then went and got a certification in order to solidify myself. And one thing led to another. My position changed to oversee DEI for the institution. Got recruited, did some DI work in healthcare, and then luckily enough found an HGAR posting for a DI officer, applied, and here I am.
It's great. Well, we are excited to have you on board with us for two reasons. One, this is something that we've talked about for a long time, but we never gave it legs and wheels for it to be action-oriented. So during my year in 2022, as we were making the budget in 2021, the then CEO, Richard Haggerty, and I pretty much wanted to make a budgetary allocation to really stand, to put our money where our mouth is so that we can get this into motion. And that's where it started as an association. And my involvement was just putting that into the budget, into the line item and getting it approved. And then, of course, the search happened, and then here you are. There's a lot of misconception about what DEI is. If you would like to talk a little bit about it, there's a lot of people who talk about other social justice issues, and they try to blend that into the DEI component. And, of course, there is a very strong underpinning for fair housing with DEI as well. That being said, would you take a few minutes to tell us what is DEI and what is not DEI based on perceptions?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, and I think it's not an easy one to really fully answer.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
No, but I think it's a great question. So obviously, kind of strict definition is one thing, and then how we interpret that definition is another. So when we think about diversity, equity, inclusion, diversity is who we are, everything we are. And so everyone is diverse in nature, right, in terms of how we think, who we are, what we represent, how we identify, all those things, what we value, what's important, makes us who we are. Inclusion is making sure that we participate, 100% participation, not just participation by being there, but being able to speak, being able to receive resources, be able to participate at the fullest extent. And then equity, equity is an interesting piece because we tend to always kind of, talk about equality and equity together, but they are different. Equality, we give people all the same things. Equity says we give people what they need. And so when we think about different types of people feeling included, feeling like they can be successful, then we got to give you what you need, not give everyone the same thing, right? Because success looks different to you than it is to me. And so that's the kind of broad definition of each one. In terms of what is DEI and what's not DEI, you know, when we talk about people, anytime we deal with individuals and people, it's complex because people are complex, right? We're human beings. Right. It's just the nature of it all. And so I think what the struggle always is depending who's at the head of the table, right? Where the power lives will depend on what type of diversity we're talking about, whether it's racial, whether it's gender identity, whether it's, you know, the diversity of thought, right? Depends. But I think what needs to be consistent is why we're doing it. If we talk about why we're doing DEI, why we do fair housing, why social justice is important, what we find is a common thread. And the common thread in many cases, we're talking about the underserved, the people who've been persecuted, whether it's in this country, whether we're talking about real estate. We get specific, right? Why do we focus so much on racial equity? Because our history forces us to. Our history tells us people were left out. So fair housing has to then try to address that issue. DEI is really around making sure that everyone has an opportunity to succeed and whatever success means to them. It doesn't mean get paid. It doesn't mean make more money. It doesn't mean move up the ranks. But if that means something for you, then we got to work on that. So, you know, there's a lot of different takes, a lot of different paths, a lot of different turns and twists in this work. But we have to remain consistent of why we're doing it. And once we have that answer, everything, all our roads should lead to that.
Right. Yeah, you know, you hit the point there about the different angles, you know. Many years ago when we opened our office in the Bronx, everyone said, why are you opening an office in the Bronx? Why not Long Island? Why not Queens? Why not Manhattan? You know, for some reason, we've been doing a lot of business in the Bronx. It was a business move for me to open in the Bronx. And we are in the Morris Park, you know, and they told us that this office is going to fail because you are not exactly where you should be.
Right.
It was a different community out there.
Defined by, and it should be, right? It's defined by someone else.
Exactly.
Right.
And they defined that.
Right.
And they said, you don't fit the pattern.
Right.
And so this may not be the place for you. But you know what? You can try it for a year or two. It's been a decade or more.
Right.
We're probably one of the prime offices that's there. That's
awesome.
Well respected, involved, and we blended into the community. And in the last 10 years, the community changed. The same people who wrote the definition for what our belonging is or not have gone. And there's a different set of people that are there that are saying, you belong here.
Right.
You know, so, you know, to speak to that, what is the most, well, I don't want to say the most difficult aspect of DI work, but what is it that you bump your head against? You know, where do you bust your toes and say, oh my God, my knuckles are getting hurt doing this?
Yeah.
You know? What's the troubling side of DEI?
I think there's two big things that make this hard. One is the time it takes to do it right.
Okay.
You know, I've been at the association 2 years. From the moment I stepped foot here, people like you and others have been part of this for a long time. And so you've been, you know, dealing with the issues of whether it's inequality, whether it's perception, whether it's bias for a long time. And so I come in, I'm new, and now you say, we need change now. And I said, I just got here.
Yeah.
You know, I got to figure some things out. I got to understand what the issues are.
Right.
So I think, you know, time is usually not on our side. We have to respond. We have to be quick, and people want to see and feel the change. So I think that's the first difficult part of this work, where culture change just takes a long time. The second one is I have no control over how people feel or interpret things at times. And, you know, my job is not to change your mind. My job is to allow you to understand so you can make the best possible decisions or conclusions. And so because of that, I have to be patient. Because of that, I have to educate. Because of that, we have to have conversations, and we may not be happy with each other during those conversations. But the idea is that, you know, I'm coming from a good place, and I know you're coming from a good place. And so if we can get to where we need to, that's point A. But a lot of people say, Freddie, you got to talk to this person because this person's not getting it. So the question is, to me, is not, okay, let me change their mind. Is how can I approach this conversation so that they can understand the reasons why we're doing what we're doing? I'll give you a perfect example of that. We did a DEI demographic survey 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And
I remember that.
Yeah. And when we did that survey, we got a lot of people come back to us and say, why are you doing this? Why are you asking these personal questions? And the first thing that I came up with was to tell them, hey, why don't you come into the office? Love to chat, right? Rather than ignoring, rather than just saying, oh, that's just a subset of our population. Hey, let me understand why you're so frustrated. Let me share to you why we're collecting this information. Out of the people that were unhappy, not one of them wanted to chat about it. Now, again, that's their choice, but we'll continue to do our work, and hopefully one day they will join us at the table. So that's, that means it's going to take longer to have those conversations. I mean, the work takes longer.
Right.
And so all those things kind of lend hand in hand one way or another.
Right. I think that you hit the point where it is, you can get them to see what it is and give them an opportunity to decide and make that change, the necessary change that they will need to make. Some people, and sometimes it's me, I know what it is, but sometimes it's like, there is that unconscious bias that which is a class that you teach.
It's real.
Different associations across the state of New York.
Yeah.
So there's an unconscious bias that comes in. So that is something that I want our viewers and our audience to really take into consideration, is that unconscious bias is really, it's in all of us. We can not deny that that one doesn't have it. However, I think it's recognizing that we have that and addressing it and taking concrete steps so that we are a little bit more equity centric, we are more diversity centric, and we are more inclusive in our behaviors, in our decisions, in our leadership, with our teams, clients, buyers, sellers, whoever they are. But not to go on a rabbit trail, Freddie, but there is some pushback for this, and I want to address that pushback a little bit, because our audience is mostly realtors and realtor associations across the country. We've had some downloads from Europe as well.
All right.
And so my question is, there is some pushback in the sense that there are some naysayers saying that, oh, this is another woke concept that is being pushed into the field. I understand that, because anything new, there is pushback. Anytime there is change, there is pushback. Anytime there is something that's going to stimulate growth and get them to start thinking, there is pushback. People did not like the telephones. People did not like the electricity. People did not like a simple invention such as, I don't know, a lawnmower, cars, whatever.
Yeah.
So there is a lot of pushback, and I think both at the National Association of Realtors and at the New York State Association and at our own local association, we have done we have begun the work, and we are putting our money where our mouth is, and we are trying to get things going. So as the DEI officer, when people say this is a woke concept, this is something that's it's a phase, it's going to fade away. What's your response to that?
Yeah, it's another great question. So I think first and foremost, DEI work has existed for a long time. So, Freddie is not the first person to do it. People have been doing it before me at the association level, at the state, at the national, other industries. And so this isn't new. So that's one. Two is, I tell people all the time, do we want the question I ask folks is, do we want everyone to be successful? Do we want a fair system?
Yeah.
Do we want people to participate and engage and really feel like they're part of something? If the answer is yes to all, which for most people it is, then we have to think about each individual separately. We can't think about this is a woke thing, or this is, I don't like it, or it's taken, because if we're really committed to one another, then that means we're willing to do anything it takes for each individual to be able to be successful. So that's kind of where I start. The second thing is this work is around people. And when, again, going back to the beginning, people are complicated, which means we're going to take a lot of twists and turns in this work to try to understand every individual we possibly can. So, the political landscape has certainly made this very difficult. The woke, whatever that means, right? People just use it, don't even really kind of quantify it. I would say that a lot of the work that we do, it's driven by data, by science. Bias is science. It's not a make believe thing, right? It's bias is science. It's the way the brain works. We cannot retain and see everything. Like, right now you're looking at me and I'll say what color pants I'm wearing. You may not remember, but I'm wearing pants. That's science, right? It can't process all the information. Right. And so the idea that this is just an agenda, I think it's dangerous in many different ways. I think it limits the work of DEI because folks who may not understand it 100% are going to shy away from it. So ultimately, what I say to people is, do we want everyone in our offices or in our spaces to feel like they can succeed, like they're part of the team? And if the answer is yes, then we have to do whatever it takes to make sure that happens.
You talked about the word success there. So from a DEI perspective, what is the benefit for real estate and for realtors, short-term, long-term, by following some of these principles? What would be the gain there?
So many. There's so many. I mean, we can give a long list.
Yeah, we got to keep this to, the top 10. Okay.
On a short-term basis, first of all, it builds the way you interact with people. We teach a course on cultural competency. And what we talk about is everyone's culture is different. So, the example I tend to use in the course is I'm a Jets fan. Right, I come across a Jets fan.
They have new uniforms, by the way.
New uniforms. We got a new quarterback. Yeah. We're excited. We're excited. But when I say I'm a Jets fan and someone in the room is a Jets fan, there's a sense of like, yes,
belonging.
Jets, Jets. Right. We just know these things. That's part of our culture, right? The chant that we say, and so it helps you understanding cultural competency, which is part of DI. Helps you build relationship with people, helps you see things differently, allows you to say, maybe, I'm a hugger. There's another example I use. When I meet people, I hug them. Not everybody likes to be hugged. I've learned that the hard way, right? So it allows you to build and strengthen relationship with your clientele or your employees. So that's one. On number two is it allows you to expand your business, right? Enter new markets, folks you may not have serviced before, right? I always like to say, make a list of, where you've sold houses before, where you have not, and see what that, opportunity brings, whether it's, higher homes or different people or a slew of people that want to buy but haven't been approached to buy. And so it helps you that. So that's two short term. From a long term perspective, I think two major ones is one is your brand.
Okay.
Right, when people know and feel welcome and feel, that gets around. People talk about it, and that has a long-term effect, right? Oh, you got, how many people? I mentioned Anthony's name. I say, hey, Anthony DeMattodi? Absolutely. Who doesn't, right?
Thank you. You're gracious.
But that's the brand. That's what people go to, and so from a long-term, the branding. I think also referral. Right, we know selling houses is all about.
Sure.
It's all about who.
Yeah, who knows who?
Hey,
who's connected? Correct.
You got to go to this. This was my real. Yesterday we had a panel at the offices, and someone said, "Oh, I that was the realtor that sold me my house 20 years ago," and they still talk, and they're friends, and I'm sure they've given recommendations and recommendations from. Yeah. So I think from a business aspect, it just makes sense. There's nothing in this space that you can do that can harm you. Remove the words. If we remove diversity, equity, and inclusion and just talk about the relationship, the people building, the strategy, the more clientele, the more people you can. I mean, you talk about that, it's a win for everybody.
Right. I think you hit it on the head with with just trying to really grow one's brand as somebody who is inclusive, who is accepting, you
Right.
know, and it's beyond tolerance and it's acceptance, you know, and, you know, all that is great. But I want to dig a little deeper into this. Okay.
Okay.
What are some tips that you would give to someone looking to diversify their teams? For example, their boards. There are different associations out there. And, you know, for our board, I was the first Southeast Asian president.
Congratulations.
And thank you.
That's great.
And you are our first DI officer who is, you know, Dominican by descent, you know. And so there are different boards, organizations out there, associations, not only in the state of New York, elsewhere. You know, I recently got a call from Texas the other day, somebody from leadership wanting to find out what are some things that they are working on, that we are working on, that we can help them. So tips and advice for realtors and also for leadership, and for boards as to what are some nuggets of wisdom you have for them?
You know, I think, you know, like anything, you have to start with the numbers, right?
Okay.
Understand who you got, who you don't have, understand what makes business sense. So, you know, you want to expand into a community that you've never worked with before. You should understand how is that represented in our workforce or at our association level or, you know, committee level, et cetera. So first, understand what the numbers look like. Second, I think it's a genuine relationship. I get a lot of organizations reach out to me and say, Freddie, we need to diversify our board. And I say, okay, cool. So what you doing? Well, that's what we coming to you for. As if I have a list of 12 people that I'm just going to be like, hey, here, call these 12 people. And so you have to build genuine relationships. That's showing up. So we have NAREB, ARIA, LGBTQ Alliance, right? We got all these organizations. How do we show up in a genuine way? Are we just putting them on our website? Are we just inviting them when it's beneficial for us? Or are we using our resources to support them by sponsoring, by attending? Are we showing up, you know, putting ourselves in a maybe uncomfortable situation, you know, to build those relationships? And that's a real question.
Right.
And so, you know, are we doing that? I think the last thing is focus on the process in which people arrive. Because what you'll find is, in many cases, it's the bias that leads that process. So I've served in all different types of boards in my career, serving on a few now. You know, we talk a lot about what's the next generation of board members. The next generation of board members in most boards is tap someone on the shoulder. When we tap someone on the shoulder, the percentage of them looking like us and being like us and thinking like us and being from where we're from is very high. And so if we are 80% white and 80% of those people are tapping shoulders, the next generation will be 80% white. So we have to start to think about the process in which we tap all people to try to get into this funnel, not just by tapping shoulders, by talking about the benefits, talking about the engagement, talking about the things they'll get out of this process as well, so that they can kind of enter into that pipeline and that cycle. So, you know, there's a lot of other things we can certainly do, but I would say from an association level, from a realtor, trying to find other, you know, realtors, brokers, you know, how do we cultivate new realtors? You know, all right, you can be 18 and be a realtor. That's a beautiful. That's a beautiful thing. That's a beautiful thing. That means we can tap into people, you know, who may not. College is not for them. We can tap into different types of communities. I'm surprised we're not in high schools more. You know, talking about the beautiful career someone can have as a realtor. I think all those are opportunities in many ways.
Right. You know, I want to address that. We're not in high schools yet. We will be soon, because from the state standpoint, we are creating a boilerplate type of thing. So that other associations can use it as well. It's not just for members of a committee, but it's for everyone. You know, and reach out to us if you have any questions as to what's the process. We may not have all the answers, but we are willing to share any resource that we have for you so that you can benefit and grow from this process as well. So with NYSAR on the DI committee, we have a discovery subset, which I'm vice chairing, and it's along with Jenna Wagner, and it's amazing to see what we have come up with. It's a template. It's It's a boilerplate that you can adapt it,
Right.
modify it, customize it for your demographic way wherever you are. There's a lot of good things that are happening, but it all comes down to involvement.
Right.
There are still some people on the sidelines, and they're kind of saying, you know what, we talked about the phase, the fad, and all that stuff, but there are some people who are not really supporting this.
Right.
And there are some realtors who are really involved in this.
Sure.
So
And that happens everywhere.
Everywhere, correct.
You're never going to have 100%.
100%, correct.
It's just the nature of the thing. And so and the idea is to accept that.
Right.
To accept that.
And also, so for realtors who are in on this topic and who are convinced that DEI is important, how can we further this movement,
Right.
or this change factors? What can we do as realtors to make this even stronger, better, or move it faster?
Oh, that's
I'm sorry, I'm going to be throwing some.
no, that it's
But that's why I'm sure people are looking
Right.
listening to this and looking at this, watching this video, saying, "What's my takeaway?
like, what can I do?
What can I do as a realtor to really be DEI centric,
Right.
if that's a word, and to push this along so that we can have a better place for everyone."
The complicated part again is that it's really hard to tackle this on a national level.
Mm-hmm.
So local, it's hyper local. Every community is different. Every board is different, and so I think that's what makes it difficult for every individual realtor. I think where it starts is education. Right, spend the time, spend the energy, ask the questions. I tell people all the time: you call me, email me, let's talk. You don't understand something? I said something that may kind of throw you for a loop. That's good. That means you're thinking. That means you're curious enough. Curiosity has to be at the center of it. So the first and most important is understanding, obtaining knowledge, and educating yourself in whatever way. Reading a book, watching a video, watching this podcast, right? So just to wrap your head around the core concepts. I think from there is being an ally, and an ally means showing up, supporting the work. So we had a DEI summit. Showing up to that, whether you know it, whether you don't know it, whether you think you know it, show up, because that support only leverages what else we can do moving forward. Attend events, women's events, accessibility, disability events. We have obviously the heritage months. We have religious events, right? Showing up, so to show that is as important as anything else, and so showing that genuine commitment to the work. And then, from there is getting involved, getting engaged in whatever way you seem fit. I think there are a lot of people, like you said, on the sidelines that just are realtors doing their work, trying to make a living for all the right reasons. And I get that. But for the industry to change, we need your voice. And so it's important that you get involved as you possibly can at the board level.
Right. And for our audience, one of the things that we've done last year, the year before, was our first DEI summit, and it was very successful. We had multiple agencies, multiple associations and boards participate across the state and also from Jersey and also from other areas. You had a second summit recently.
Yeah.
And how was that? Do you want to tell me?
That was great. Not fantastic. We partner with a number of different associations in New York and New Jersey, but we get attendance from Connecticut. We got some folks from Maryland, the D.C. area. So folks coming from all over to learn, expand their knowledge. New Jersey, be a little bit more curious about what DI is and how it works on a day-to-day basis. So it was a tremendous success. We held it in Tarrytown here in Westchester County. We had about 200 attendees, 3 keynote speakers, breakout sessions, lunch, breakfast, the whole yard. We had a CE course the day before. People stayed over. I mean, it was a big to do, and happy that it happened. Happy that it's over. It's a lot of work too. So, but funny enough, we're already working on 2024. will take place in Newark, New Jersey. So we're looking at locations now, but we hope to make it bigger, better. And so if you're interested, you can go on HGR's website. You can find information there. You can also go to DEIRealEstateSummit.com. We hope to put some more information for next year's summit on there. But, it is just a great opportunity to gather where people probably challenged with the same things you're challenged with, asking some of the questions you may not be comfortable asking, and allowing these dialogues to lead us into the real work of not only DEI, but the integration and participation it has with fair housing. I always say fair housing and DEI holds hands.
Yes.
Right? They participate together. They hang out together. They're important for one another. They're different, but they are important for one another. And to me, the realtor superpower is understanding both.
Right. Right. And I think you hit it on the head, especially when it comes to the summit side of it. So to all of the board presidents and vice presidents, or president-elects, past presidents, board members, association members, committee members, so chairs and vice chairs, in whatever position you may be at on your association or with your board, let's make that intentional step to bring DEI into the discussion of everything that we are doing, because it's not about one person, because it's all about us, and it's about making our world stronger, better, educated, even more sensitive and perceptive to one another. So, and I really think that as leaders we have that opportunity. And Freddie, you really brought this discussion front and center. And you've really enlightened us with a lot of the concepts. We learn a lot, But at the same time, is there one, 2, 3, 4, 5 things that individuals should be doing, which we talked about? What about associations that do not have the funding,
right?
To hire somebody and make it a budgetary line item, but they don't have those resources. Smaller associations with 200, 300 members, 500, 1,000 members, they may not have that kind of resources.
Sure.
What I know, I'm not looking for that magic bullet answer, but what are some resources that are available for those association members that don't have a DEI officer on staff?
Yeah. So let me to answer that question, let me go back to like the trajectory of DEI, because I think it's important, because we can all play a role in one phase or another. So the kind of work first started in the workforce. Started with affirmative action,
correct,
which in many cases being attacked today, and we won't get into all that.
I'm not getting into that. That's a whole another podcast.
Right. But affirmative action, right? So first started with representation, who's in the room, that kind of thing. From there, went to then talking about multiculturalism, celebrating people's cultures and who they were, and let's have the potluck dinner, and let's celebrate in the Muslim Eid, and let's celebrate Festival of Lights, and let's do these things. Then from there became the social justice, right? The fighting for people's rights and changing process and policy so that everyone has an opportunity, et cetera, et cetera. So for many associations, I think what you can do again is collecting data, because data is always, I think, at the center of what we do. Number 2 is celebrate people. Celebrate where they come from. Celebrate, the different perspectives. I think we have 88, the anniversary of 88 tomorrow. Right? Celebrate these moments. These are opportunities to let people know what's important to you and how that relates to your association. So do that as much as you can. Right? We got Black History Month. You got Pride Month. You got Hispanic Heritage Month. You have Women's Equalities Day. You have Human Rights Day. You have Fair Housing Month. You have all these things that we can all participate in. You don't need a DI officer to do, right? You can collaborate with your community around
Absolutely.
it.
Yeah.
So that's one. The other thing you can also do is collaborate with other associations. At HGAR, collaboration is, I think, key, a priority. I go, different places. I'm stressed thin at times, but I go anywhere I can to spread the good word of DEI and what it means and how it works. I think doing that more often with other associations who may be a little step, little further in the process, I think is also something we should consider. So collaboration, when we go to NYSAR, we have a nice contingent of folks who talk about it at the business meetings, try to help, try to support. At the NAR level, same thing. You know, got a group of people that are trying to tackle this from different avenues. So just get involved, be there, and reach out. Again, HGAR.com, you find me, and I'll connect you with whoever, you know, you need to connect with so that you can be successful at it as well.
Right. Well, it's been wonderful chatting with you.
Thanks for having me. This is great.
And I hope we can bring you back another time in the fall season because we want closer to. This is a busy time for realtors, so they're probably not paying much attention to this. So I want to bring you back again. But thank you for sharing.
Anthony, thanks for having me. Thank you.
And the words of wisdom, and that really mean a lot to me and to our audience. Thanks. I will leave you my link with the QR code, so you when this document is released, so that you can reach out to me and to Freddie or to the association, or to our new president and Tony Danziger and our new CEO Linda Fernandez. So we'll have those informations available for you. But thank you, Freddie, once again, and this has been wonderful. Thank you for being a part of leading the way.
No, I absolutely couldn't do it without the support of everybody behind him, including you, our President Tony, our interim CEO Jana, our CEO Linda, and everybody else at the HGR team. There's a collective effort, and we should continue moving forward.
Correct. And Jana Courier has been very instrumental during my year in herding the cats and getting things done.
We got a great team here.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We appreciate that. Thanks, Freddie.